Hey guys, it's Matt. This video is constructed so you can show it to someone if you want to, meaning I won't embarrass you. There won't be anything here that would get you removed from a relative's household, for example. And if anybody's complaining, I can hear you. You did this last Saturday, another video on stupid stoves and heat. I'm not interested in that. Really? Are you interested in simple explanations that prove Western governments are completely illegitimate? How about that? What did you say? A simple explanation that proves Western governments are illegitimate? How are you going to do that? Very simply. Just give me about 20 minutes. Nothing demonstrates it more than these examples. At the very minimum, it is a government that is only about the large corporation. You know, we take things much farther than that, but that is at least something where we can find common ground with the people around us. Let's start here. We've all heard the stories of the incredible air pollution in certain cities. I don't know, I'm not an expert on the history of it, but I would say mid to late 1800s through maybe the 1920s. London, Pittsburgh comes to mind, where there was just this thick soot from the wood burning, from the coal, and the scene in Godfather 2 that shows Don Corleone as a younger man. If that was legitimate, that air would be a lot thicker maybe than what's portrayed in the movie. We've heard these stories. Now, what I'm going to show you is back in the day, it is likely they have the answers or had the answers as to how to eliminate, say, 80% of this pollution. If they didn't have the answers back then, they've certainly had them for the last 30 years after they have supposedly put a man on the moon, that you'll see how ridiculously simple these techniques are to remove, 95% of the particulates. In the last video, I said with no emission, and someone thought I was being literal, like not one molecule is coming out of the chimney. Then what would the chimney be for? I don't mean no emission. It's just a way of saying something. Jeez. What are you going to do today, Napoleon? Anything I feel like doing. God.
Stove like this, it will give the opportunity to burn a considerable amount of that material out of the fire. So that's a typical example of one of the original Lorena stoves. Other ones have, in a more sophisticated design, which actually is much more common now, the channel here is separated so the flame and heat, the flame does not come up through those grates. It actually continues out and goes up a little flue stack in the back. So you have just heat coming up through these two units.
Now, guys, this is sad and comical at the same time. It started with the rocket mass heaters roughly 10 years ago, just over 10 years ago. These videos started to pop up on YouTube where people are talking about these new designs where if you make the fire just do this or that, tiny little adjustments, make a J-tube or insulate a certain part of the opening part of the chimney, you can get up to 95 to 98% clean burn, no emission. All these people come out and start giving these lectures. Look at this stove. It's a piece of shit. You don't think your government that can design nuclear submarines and nuclear vessels can give the people the information about how to make a clean wood-burning stove? Are you kidding me? I should just cut the video off right here. It's like, remember George Costanza when he tells the joke? He's like, I'm out of here. Why continue it? This proves governments across the entire West are not legitimate. If you're still not getting it, have you ever heard the government coming to the people and saying, we made a breakthrough in our labs, and they pay, each university gets hundreds of millions of dollars to do certain research for the government or for the Pentagon or whatever. It was the same as Wheeler Labs presented in the movie A Beautiful Mind. Have you ever heard the government come to the people and say, we want to give this to you. We came up with something we think all of you can benefit from. When was the last time you heard that? That by itself proves government is not legitimate. Is anybody listening to this wishing they could tell me about capitalism and it is not the role of government to give ideas to private citizens and corporations because that's how the capitalist market works? Really? if they actually adhered to what the capitalist market should be, which means government only serves the role of fulfilling what corporations and the people cannot. And that's all government is supposed to do under the pure capitalist model. Like build a giant turnpike across the state of Pennsylvania. No one group on its own can do that. So government is needed. If government kept to its role, only doing what the people and groups cannot do, like electric lines throughout an entire city. This government for 100 years has its sticky fingers in absolutely everything. Since this model exists, it should then, because it is involved in everything, benefit the people in whatever it comes up with. But you've never heard anything like the statement I mentioned a few minutes back about, we've come up with this and we think you can use this. If anything was legitimate about Western governments, in 1850, let's just say the United States would have opened, it would have been a whole branch of the government, the Office of the People. And if we come up with a technological innovation, a breakthrough that we think the people can use, whether it be in farming or agriculture, whatever, in 1850, go to the Department of the People's website. GoDaddy existed in 1850. Of course it did. And then we'll share it with you. And if anybody's screaming at me about other things, I can hear you saying, they did share it with the people, Matt, but their own cronies. They scratched each other's backs. Edison, who knows how much help he got? The government, it's just a guy in a lab, right? The government and the massive infrastructure of billions of dollars flowing around just has nothing to do with it. Maybe they are, and they're giving it to their own cronies. Maybe they are. You think that's a conspiracy? You think that's just a theory for just those people? Well, you don't know how the world works, sir. Matt, you said you would embarrass us. Sorry. If I've done that, I do apologize. I will kind of tone it down a bit. Let's back up for a second and pause and take a deep breath. Let me show you a segment of one of the first rocket stove videos that created this whole rocket stove, change in stove design, quote, no emission, configuration changes in wood burning. This video almost single-handedly started this craze 12 to 13 years ago. Now you'll see I don't have a word for how rudimentary and simple it is. Monkeys just playing around with stones in Africa, I'm sure, came up with this on their own as monkeys burned fire. Don't they do that? Let's say they did. Monkeys just stacking bricks and sticks would stumble upon this. Are you saying to me that the Western governments had no idea how to make tiny little rudimentary changes to wood burning processes, the fireplace, the wood stove, etc., to create efficiencies where 95% of the particulates get burned up? There was no government agency that decided to pop up when you couldn't see 5 feet in front of you in Pittsburgh in 1890 because of the soot in the air from everybody burning their own coal stoves and what the factories were doing. No government agency could ever come together and try to solve this problem. Are you kidding me? Are there any defenders of reality here? The palace guard for corrupt governments? If there are, go away. Look at this horse shit I'm about to show you.
Right here. And I go. The harder that pipe gets, the better it burns sideways. Yeah. You can see a little bit of smoke there. In that newspaper, fine ash, that's the stuff you'll be cleaning out, and it takes, but when we put the heat riser on there, the hotter this gets, also the better that burns in there, so that smoke starts burning up. When we insulate it, the liner of the heat riser will be super hot, and what it'll do is burn up all of the smoke.
Matt, you are out of your mind. You have derailed, my friend. You're losing your credibility, I think, if you can't deliver on this. You're saying somehow all of Western governments are corrupt using this one example, and this little rudimentary, whatever this piece of horse shit stuff that they're doing here in the mud changes everything regarding emissions and particulate matter and wood burning and even coal burning and different processes. This has been proven over the past 10 years. And these jackasses come up and they give their lectures all over YouTube like there's been some huge, amazing discovery. There's just been a rediscovery of what the caveman probably knew. If anybody's not following me, what I'm saying is tiny little rudimentary adjustments to chimney design, creating a J style with the back end insulated, maybe 4 feet up. Very rudimentary things, literally monkeys could come up with. They're going to tell you that this government had no idea that these people are playing around in the mud and solving everything, but this government that can put out their nuclear vessels, they had no idea. Matt, this sounds awfully conspiratorial. It's almost like you're suggesting they might have known, and those $100 million that they give every single university since 1860 in terms of doing research to benefit, it's almost like you're saying they knew but didn't share it with the people. Well, obviously, monkeys playing around in the mud knew. And also, guys, this is not some weird theory that this, Matt, what proof is there that this eliminates the emissions the way you say? Look, if you want to go watch the 1,000 videos like I have over the last 10 years, it does. I've done it even in my own backyard. You insulate the top part of the J that these guys that give the lecture call a heat riser, like it has to be some sophisticated term. You just insulate the back end. You create a J. You create a longer run. You don't do it like a typical wood-burning stove. And what you get out, you look at your smokestack, and there ain't no bit of smoke coming out of it. And it's not even that hot. It burns up. All the smoke is actually fuel that can be burned up. So you can believe that these guys playing around in the mud just came up with something. The government had no idea. They had no clue making nuclear vessels and all the technology that they put into defense and Raytheon and Northrop Grumman and Lockheed Martin and Boeing and McDonnell Douglas, and that doesn't exist anymore, but that's one of the names I know, and putting people and shit in the moon and millions of satellites roaming around and looking at license plates from satellite and spying on Kim Jong-un through his bedroom window from a satellite, but just tiny little adjustment on a wood stove. This government, Matt, you can't expect them to know that. No, you'd have to be one of those people to believe the government actually knew this and didn't share it with the people. I don't care how conspiratorial it sounds. That's the truth of it.
You know what that is. This is the example. You've got your air, in this case, a horizontal feed where the wood goes in. The burn is horizontal and also some vertical, and then it hits the pot chamber, which is sealed up here and here. So there's your seal right there. And the smoke exits right out the flue.
So then this subculture of people kept experimenting. It led to something like this. A rocket mass heater has that J design. The heat riser goes up into the barrel. Then the air flows down through the mast, through the cob bench, which radiates heat out into the home for 10 hours. So it's not just the efficiency of the burn. This is the Russian type heaters we'll talk about in a moment. It's not just the efficiency of the burn and burning up all smoke. It's you can create a certain draft so the heat translates into cob or mud or stone or brick or whatever, something of a large weighted mass before the hot air leaves the house. So again, okay, yeah, the Russians have been doing this, and people in Finland and Norway, and they've been, at least in North America, some of these masonry stoves exist, okay, they do exist, but it's kept very quiet. This is self-sufficiency. It proves that the government is never interested in helping people with self-sufficiency. It proves it's always, this thing we call government is always about protecting its cronies and its massive corporations. Because this stove stuff is like my hobby, I've spent time on this Russian website. It's like stove.ru, but I don't think you can type www. I don't know. When that doesn't get me there. I just type stove.ru, not even with HTTP. It's in Russian, but then you translate to English and you can read most of it okay. But it's not like the Russians have it all figured out, and it's like it just didn't make it to North America. I mean, even this guy is coming up with new techniques, and he's saying even ways of doing it has been lost. And he's talking about what are considered in this masonry stove industry to be gigantic breakthroughs, creating a giant mass of brick, which is called the bell. But it's very simple stuff, guys. It's stuff that any scientific lab or government lab or defense contractor that works with missile technology, they obviously had this figured out way before the days of Homer Hickam and the October sky. He figured it out, missile technology in his backyard. These people, it's still going on even in Russia, where, come on, and then again, people are experimenting just by stacking bricks. Are you, one last time, well, it probably won't be the last time, right? Are you telling me these trillion-dollar governments didn't know all of this? Of course they did. They kept it from the people. Now, if all we had was stoves, I guess we conspiracy people wouldn't have a lot to go on. This is a repeating theme in like every single area. Go research gasoline or other alternative forms of energy. And it's not just about energy. We're dealing with something very sinister when it comes to government as it operates as a whole. Okay, guys, these are the new breakthroughs when it comes to masonry heating. And if this is not for you, I will talk about this technical stuff. I think anybody will find it interesting, but only during this diagram. Skip ahead away from this diagram if you want to return to the type of video that was being made. But this just demonstrates how rudimentary this is. And of course they knew it. So the relatively traditional masonry heater, guys on the right, this would be it looks like a fireplace with 12 feet of brick stacked up in a huge square. You burn the crap out of the fireplace with a closed glass door. It creates a tremendous amount of heat that radiates into the bricks, and this is more of a Finland system or a Swiss or Swedish system. On the right, it's called counterflow. But the Russian guy has breakthroughs regarding the Bell technology, which I'll tell you about. But again, to call this a breakthrough is absurd. It's like saying tying your shoes is a breakthrough. The government's held it back. So the heat and the exhaust goes up in the one on the right, hits the top of the brick, is all encased in brick, flows down the sides. As it flows down the sides, it heats the entire mass of the 10-foot brick tower up and then exits from the floor. It has enough heat and energy to exit out of the house. The point is it warms this, 5,000-pound brick mass, and it takes 10 hours to radiate that nice heat out even after the fire is out. The Russian guy I guess you could call it still experimenting, but has breakthroughs in what shouldn't be a breakthrough. Again, I would say this Russian guy's grandfather probably knew all this. Somehow, just as usual, it was lost. Where it's called a bell. The fire is burnt we're at the box on the left. Bottom left is where the fire is burned. You follow the little red line. There's a gigantic 2-chamber brick structure constructed over the fire, and it's not guided with a stovepipe or anything. It flows up to the first chamber. The heat is trapped up top, while the cooler gases drop to the bottom because of the difference between hot and cold gases. Then up the right side to the second chamber, where again it traps just in an open brick box. There's nothing technical about this at all. A music box from 1700 is 1,000 times more complicated. Then eventually, if you keep enough energy and heat without losing too much into the brick thermal mass, it will exit out the chimney. And guess what comes out? Almost no smoke, or you don't even observe smoke. So he's talking about the free flow of gases and trapping with these bells. Guys, we're literally just talking about stacking up bricks. And this is transformative in terms of how people can heat their homes without being a slave to the big oil companies or the gas companies or whatever. I mean, the solar company is posited as something that's so for you. It's the same giant corporate cronyism as anything else. Put giant solar panels all over your roof. Then it takes them, 80 million years to break down if you ever have to put the damn thing in a landfill. This should be the greatest thing in the world to Al the Gore. What's his name? Al Bohr? But he'll never talk about it. Oh no, that hurts. If everybody went to this, there wouldn't be no problem, and he wouldn't get his billions. Just 3 more minutes to complete the last section. This goes with the diagrams we just looked at. This is not just a regular fireplace. It's a masonry heater that heats the entire home. The fire has a glass door over it. It's burned for only 3 hours. The entire mass of stone or brick or whatever heats up and radiates out into the house for 8 to 10 hours. Now, 99% or more of anybody in a home in Pennsylvania or Massachusetts or down through Virginia, they have a fireplace. A bigger home will have a fireplace, but it doesn't do a damn thing to heat anything. It doesn't even heat the house when the fire is being burned. A regular fireplace with like an outdoor chimney robs heat from the house. It's purely for aesthetic reasons. It's a complete and utter waste. Where all you need to do, you want a fireplace, is just weave your channels around and in a very rudimentary fashion using the bell or the counterflow approach, heat that brick up and you have 4, 5, 6 hours minimum, even if it's not designed properly, of heat. Now look, guys, we get back to the age-old argument, right? Well, why would anybody care about this when heating your house via oil, an oil fill-up, or natural gas, or whatever was used in the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the same with filling your car up with gasoline. Why would anybody care about this, even if the stone and brick was cheap, when you could fill your oil tank up for whatever it might be? A whole oil tank fill-up in the 70s would be like $50, where my oil right now, I don't know what the price of oil is, but my fill-ups, if I let it go down, have been well over $600 whenever it spiked in the past. So the conspiracy person would come along and say, well, maybe they locked everybody into cheap energy for many, many decades to convert everybody's heating processes into what the corporations supply, what is not a self-sufficient solution. And then, now we are gone. The days of cheap energy, you just feel it, are gone. Oil, and it has nothing to do with supply and demand. Magically, the oil wells just never run out, do they? Cheap energy, filling your tank up, your car, oil deliveries, natural gas, it is gone forever. It could be the inflation or the erosion of the worth of the dollar. Whatever the reason is, it's gone forever. But if, as we saw this coming 25 years ago, why didn't these stove techniques or the masonry heater techniques or the rocket stove heating techniques, why didn't it come back? Why does it have to be these damn hippies in their backyards, playing around with bricks? Obviously, a defender of reality will say that my take on it, that it was intentional, that is ridiculous to them. These are simple facts, guys.
Il n'y a pas de fumée visible. Avec le rocket stove, on atteint cet objectif. Avec d'autres systèmes de combustion, on peut aussi atteindre cet objectif.
All I have to say is thank God for these French permaculture hippies that decided to stack bricks up in new ways to try to give you something that the government can't give you. Not that they won't, of course. That would be a conspiracy that they can't figure out. So, guys, this whole back 5-minute section or so is just me talking over the French permaculture hippies. I'll point out a few things about the rocket stove design. I'll make a few jokes, of course. I'll bitch about how the government has held this back. But if you're busy and you have anything better to do, this is just the last segment. And guys, all you have to do for that heat riser is stack up fire brick. You don't have to insulate it if you use fire brick. It gets hot enough, as this young hippie French permaculture. I guess they live together in a. Matt, why are you teasing these people? They live together in a commune, is it, of some kind? This guy's got his own little hut. Look at that piece of shit stove. That piece of shit right there is 98% more efficient than any wood-burning stove or what anybody has in their house in Connecticut or Poughkeepsie, New York, or look at that piece of shit that he built. Look at this piece. Hey, they're building these pieces of shit, but these French hippies can get something that the stove manufacturers can't figure out. You just have to burn it along a J with an insulated top tube and a barrel, and you can eliminate 98% emissions and trap 90% of the heat before it's lost to the outside. So, ladies and gentlemen, per this piece of shit you're about to see here, I give you the pinnacle, the apex of wood-burning stove technology. that exists in North America, brought to you by these French pot-smoking permaculture hippies who decided, thank God, they decided to stack bricks up in a way that the government never told you about. And there could be how many thousands of wood stoves exist inside fireplaces in all the northern U.S. states and Canada, and those stoves, almost every one of them, is 90% less efficient than what these permaculture hippies are putting together. These wood stoves are basically the same basic design that Ben Franklin came up with, like we talked about last Saturday, these iron boxes that don't do anything, that lose 95% of the heat up the chimney, that just radiate out the iron. As soon as the fire goes out, the damn iron gets cold inside of 20 minutes. Where these techniques heat the mass or the weight or the bricks or the cob or the mud, and it radiates back out for 8 hours. The thing that's so egregious about this, guys, that really doesn't make any sense, I don't know how many millions of homes in the 30 northern states in the United States that get pretty cold, how many have fireplaces? I don't know. It has to be in the millions. Instead of just making a fire box with a chimney that sucks all of the heat out and actually robs heat from your house, all these home manufacturers needed to do, even in constructing just a regular fireplace, was weave a few basic channels, a technology that has been known in Russia for hundreds of years. Just weave a few channels before that heat goes out of the house to heat up those bricks. At least people in this situation would get something from their fireplaces. But I can hear you yelling at me, Matt, what's the point when oil heat and gas was dirt cheap? Nobody cared about the cost of heating, I guess 30, 40, 50 years ago. And people thought it would always be cheap. And is that part of the scam? Every time somebody suggests there could be something a little dark or sinister, of course, it's just labeled as the rantings of a conspiracy person, and there's never anything behind it, although everything I'm saying makes a lot of sense. What exists today defies common sense. Okay, I could see maybe why the Freemasons and the stonemasons didn't come in to build every fireplace in a way so it would hold or trap the heat. The bigger conspiracy or question that somebody like me would put out is, once the oil and the gas and the energy became so expensive, roughly starting 10 years ago, why didn't these techniques come back? Why weren't they given to you by the government? Why does it have to be French permaculture hippies in the backyard stacking bricks? That's the sinister part that doesn't make any sense. Where's the government, what do we call it, the Office of the People, with Pootie Tang as the director? Where was that office or element of government, say 10 to 12 years ago, saying, we realize that the price of energy is getting out of control and we don't want our citizens to suffer? Are you aware of these techniques to improve the efficiency of your wood stove, to improve the efficiency of your fireplace, to consider before you do new home building? Where was the government on this? You can believe they didn't know about these techniques. The French permaculture people did, but the government nuclear vessels didn't. You can believe that. If anybody believes that, that is just mind-boggling to me. They just were too lazy to give them out, or they intentionally held them back. Now, I'm not sure if another possibility exists, but I'll look to your comments. I appreciate what these pot-smoking hippies did. They created, in this little, wherever they live on the mud here, they created what is considered, that piece of shit is the apex or pinnacle of fire and wood burning technology. And my ultimate dream or hope would be that the governments of the West get in contact with these hippies. United States government of the British Isles. I guess they're all inside Big Ben. Isn't that where they meet? The government in France, in Versailles. They're still in Versailles, right? Get in contact with these hippies. Now, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. You didn't know how to do this. You didn't know how to stack bricks up, government, but you can create nuclear submarines. Get in contact with the hippies. Then share the information with the people via the ad council. Those ads that are running commercials that says paid for by your taxpayer dollars. Stop telling me to stop smoking all the time. Governments of the West, why don't you bring some good advice once in a while to the people? Give me some information we can use. Everything you come up with, you just go running over to ADM, Archer Daniels Midland, and share it with Monsanto. You share all your shit with the corporations so they can get bigger and bigger. What have you brought to me by way of advice or anything I can use? Do I have to go back to like Smokey Bear in the 70s? Only you can stop forest fires? Is that the best you can do to tell me not to burn down my own neighborhood? For once, government, give me something I can use. Thanks for listening.